Started recording. The recording was started. Chat messages are also recorded.
Welcome to our webinar, Android Accessibility 101 for the blind or visually impaired. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 13th of May, 2022. Today, we're joined by Tracy Mousseau and Matthew Lorentz of the Android Accessibility Users Group. As a person who is blind, Tracy long dreamt of a support group for the blind and visually impaired phone users, somewhere to turn and help each other understand their devices better. So in 2020, Tracy signed up for a class to better understand her Android device. And as they say, the rest is history, because this August, it will be 2 years since meeting Matthew and forming the Android Accessibility Users Group. And as a person with low vision, Matthew was curious about how to better utilize his Samsung phone. So in 2020, he joined that same class and he met Tracy. So Matthew now combines his experience teaching others about blind and low vision technologies with Tracy's dream of a support group. And together, Tracy and Matthew founded the Android Accessibility Users Group. So thank you, Tracy and Matthew, for joining us today to take a closer look at Android accessibility. And I do now want to hand the webinar over to you.
Hello, my name is Tracy.
Hi, my name is Matthew. And as Doug said, we're coming up on 2 years. Tracy and I have met rather serendipitously through the Android accessible call. It's funny because the call that we were on, every time someone would ask a question about partially sighted technology use that we'll go over later on in the webinar, during this call, the host at the time said, "Oh, I don't think Android can do that," and I would raise my hand and say, "Actually, if you do this and this, you can definitely do that." And Tracy, you want to take over from there?
Yeah, I just want to point out that probably somewhere around 80% of blind people and visually impaired people use iPhones. Of course, I didn't. I kind of go against the norm. So, and my husband uses Android, so I am. And I always thought it would be good to have a group, an Android group, to help each other to know what the phones or devices, Android devices, are capable of doing. And so that was in my mind when I met Matthew on this 4 week. It was like 4 sessions that we met, and so I got in touch with him, and we decided, and we started the group together. I lost track. So as I'm totally blind, so I use the talkback feature on the Android device, and I can go through some of that. Did you want to do any introduction first before I start, Matthew?
I just wanted to say that I think that's what makes the Android accessibility users group unique, is that you get 2 different perspectives on how to use the Android devices. As Tracy mentioned, she's totally blind, so she can is more the expert in that area. Whereas myself, I do have some usable vision, so I can walk people through some of the low vision accessibility tools that I use. So I think that's what makes our group kind of unique. And Tracy, if you want to start us off, that'd be great.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll say about our group is that Matthew and I we just sort of host it. We don't say that we know everything, because there are other people on the call that know other things that we don't, and we'll share. If somebody asks a question, we can't answer it, then we usually have someone else in the group that can answer it. So that's makes it very special group as well. Okay, so when you first get your Android device, if you get it brand new and it's you take it out of the box, and when you first turn it on, you have to hold 2 fingers on the screen until you hear the words talkback, and the talkback will come on automatically now. And it's part of the built-in, it comes with the Android device. All of them have it. So I'm going to turn my phone on.
1:40 p.m. Public mobile.
See my fingerprint.
Device
Oh,
unlocked.
good. My
Note
fingerprint
7.
worked today.
Device well. Double tap to activate.
I'll
Double
turn
tap
the
and hold to long press.
turn the-
Actions available. Use tap with 3 fingers to view.
Okay, so
Accessibility volume set to 60%.
shh, be quiet. So there are a lot of there are different ways of accessing information on your phones. You can do the Explorer method, which is what I use most of the time. So
Chrome.
I
Double
slide
tap.
my finger
Calculator.
around.
FM radio. Music player. Voicemail. Dock. Messages. Dock. Apps. Double tap. Phone. Dock. Contacts. Dock.
So I just slide my
Double tap to
finger
activate.
around till I
Double
hear
tap and hold to long
the
press. Actions available. Use tap with 3 fingers to view.
till I hear the app I want. Another way is there's a lot of gesture swiping left and right. And one thing, if you want to bring up the talkback menu, you double tap with 3 fingers, and that will bring up that if you need to change anything. So for example, for
Apps. Double tap. Messages. Dock.
messages,
Double
I
tap
have to
activate.
double tap.
Messages. Search images and videos. Edit box. Messages.
So
Email.
when
Review messages.
when you where you would single, if usually you do 1 tap. With talkback, you'll do, where there's 1 you do 2, where there's 2 you do 3. So we just have more action because we have to use that first touch to find what we're looking for, to make sure we're tapping on the right spot. So if I want to send a message, define
What? Start chat.
Start
Wi-Fi
chat.
signal full. Start chat. Showing Gboard. Messages.
So I have the
Type name,
Gboard,
phone number or email address.
the-
Edit box for 2.
the Gboard right
Double
now.
tap and hold to long press.
So
Actions available. Use
so-
tap with 3 fingers to view.
so I want to send Matthew a thing. So I'm going to look for,
B. Bravo. N. M.
so I find the letter M, I lift my finger,
M.
and it
Contact
types it.
suggestions. Shift. A. R. T. T. Y. T. T.
Okay, so you have to find the letter, lift your finger, and then it types it in the space. Another method I have of entering information is this Braille Bluetooth keyboard, and this one's called the Orbit Writer, and all it does is a Bluetooth keyboard, except I write Braille on it rather than a QWERTY keyboard, and it's quite good because it's a lot faster than typing A B B. You hear, I can type A B C D, whatever I need. So it's a lot quicker. I also use a Braille display, which I don't have right now because my Braille display is sent for a repair. But when I use my Braille display, I just see 1 line at a time, and maybe we can do a different session on that. I can write with it, and I can control my phone with it. So it's really handy too. So so whatever I want, if I want to send, I have to look for
P. Double full stop. More features. Edit. View. Double space. Overview button. Window navigate done. Window Gboard.
okay.
Double
So
tap to activate.
I got to get out of this.
Editing. Matt. Edit box. Type a name. Phone number. Battery 1. Selected. Matthew Lorentz. 647.
So I could hit that,
Editing. Text message. Edit
and then I
box,
could type a
list.
message. I'll just say hi,
Capital H. Window Gboard. Hotel. I.
and now I'm going to look for send.
Send SMS button. Window. Sending message. Messages. Matthew Lorentz. Editing. Text message. Edit box.
So
Back button. Keyboard hidden.
also when you get the new devices like phones, the 3 buttons across the bottom, back, home, and overview or recent, depending on which device you have, will are not at the bottom, but they can be added to the bottom, which I prefer, having those little buttons that, they're just virtual buttons, but so, okay, so I'll go back.
Back button. Messages. Start chat. Double tap. Start chat button.
Let's go to home.
Button. Nova 7. Messages.
So back to my home page.
Double tap
So,
to activate.
so
Double
that's
tap and hold.
basically,
Actions available. Use tap with 3 fingers to view.
and you can choose a couple voices. I have the British voice because I find the American voice a little bit harsh on my ears. So I have the British, the UK voice. There are other voices you can use and download and stuff. Did I miss anything, Matthew?
The only thing I'd add is that the buttons are virtual, but you
Yes.
can go into settings and add a haptic vibration.
Oh,
So that
yes. You can choose to have haptic vibration, so which I have mine on, so that you feel when you touch it.
Home button.
Oh, I don't have it for
Apps.
there,
Window Nova 7.
but sometimes it will.
Double tap
Certain
hold.
points it will
Press.
vibrate.
Actions
You'll feel
available.
it
Use tap with
vibrate.
3 fingers to view.
Put it down. It will vibrate. Is that it? I can't remember. I think that's it.
yeah, I can take over if you want.
Okay, you take over for the other side. I'll turn
And-
mine off here.
And if you find,
Screen off.
if you think of anything else, we can always add it in later.
Yep.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm partially sighted, so I use a lot of magnification. Unfortunately, I don't know how to share my phone screen with you. But basically, the first thing I do whenever I get my phone is usually use my a little trick I use is I use my phone camera and use that to zoom in to see text. So if I have a previous phone, sometimes I'll use that phone camera until I find the accessibility settings and turn on the accessibility settings as well as either Bixby or Google was it Google Assistant. Once those are set up, then it's a lot easier to navigate. One thing I do like about Samsung specifically is that if you have settings on your previous phone, there's a button that's actually called Smart Switch, and it'll transfer all of your apps and settings to your new phone. So I find that very useful. It even transferred a setting from my old phone to my new phone that my new phone technically didn't come with, because they're always changing how accessibility is labeled and how it is utilized. For example, my old phone, all I had to do is triple tap on the screen to zoom in. Then I could pinch outward to zoom further in or pinch inward. And then I could navigate around the screen with 2 fingers. I can try and show you over the camera. I just don't know how clear it'll be. So basically, let's see. I would go like this, and then I would go, and it zooms in, and I can just pinch and then move around based on where I'm at on the screen. I don't know how well you can see that at the moment. But that's the major aspect that I use as far as navigating my phone. And to set that up, you would go to settings, go to the accessibility settings, and then go to visual enhancements, I believe they call it now, and turn on the magnifier. There's also a little, it looks like a little person in the bottom right corner you can use for an accessibility shortcut. You can turn that on at the same time. For some of the newer phones, you would hit that button once, it would zoom in, then you could pinch and move around and hit that button again and it would zoom out. Luckily, I had the same settings from my old phone transferred to my new phone, so I can still use that triple tap feature. And the reason I like that triple tap feature is I don't have to use that accessibility shortcut for my magnifier, because there is another feature that I use on my phone. It's called Select to Speak, and it's sort of a screen reader, but you have to actually see where you are on the screen. It will read the basically from the top to the bottom of your screen. I like to use that on longer emails, and I like to use that as the accessibility shortcut so that it's not on all the time. I just turn it on, hit play, and see if I can find an email to have it read. Just give me one moment. Okay, Tracy sent me this one. So I would just hit the bottom right hand corner. There's a little person, and then select to speak is one of the options that I have set up in the accessibility setting. And you'll see that there's a little play button as well as a arrow key. So what I usually do is I just hit the play button.
Pop-up UI content. May 13th, meeting with Doug Mansell.
Need to turn the volume up a little bit.
Android Accessibility Users Group, AAUG. A support group to assist people who are blind or visually impaired to use their Android devices better
That's
and
good.
confidently. Tracy Mousseau. I am an Android phone user. About 80% of people who are blind use iPhones. For several years, I thought there should be a support group for people who are blind and visually impaired to help each other learn their device better.
So then I can, from there, I can pause or hit the stop button. And when it gets to the bottom, I would scroll up with my finger just to get to the rest of the content if it's a long article. So that's the other feature I use quite a bit. I have been learning basic levels of TalkBack at the moment. Tracy's much more of an expert with TalkBack, but I do work for the CNIB as well. So I'm trying to familiarize myself with TalkBack so that I can at least use, instead of saying, oh, it's in the top right corner, I can say swipe 3 times to the right. That's one of the gestures Tracy mentioned earlier. And then double tap and you'll hear this. And then I can at least hear what they're hearing. We started this in August 2020. We've been working through, we've had different guest speakers on different wayfinding apps. Louis Voice comes to mind. There's also been different screen where you use the phone camera, and I use this a lot. You use the phone camera to read text. Google Lookout is a very good example of this. And you can read a text or you can read a document, and then you just like you hit, it'll read it as the camera goes over it. And so these are things I use, especially when cooking and trying to figure out the ingredients. I'll use just the text reader, and it'll tell me add 4 cups of flour, let's say. And so little things like that are basically how I navigate my world. And Tracy and I kind of came together because we want to share our experiences, our expertise, and try and expand on this going forward.
What about Matthew for the magnifying and color contrasts?
So I have there's a couple things you can do there. You can actually make the screen, the text itself, you can make it larger. The only caution I have there is that if you make the the text larger and then you zoom in, you may lose some of certain web pages depending on what their settings are. So I usually leave the font relatively like around medium, and then just use the zoom feature. As far as color contrast, that is also in visual enhancement. And when you can choose what type of color contrast you like. My personal favorite, at least on the Samsung, I'm not sure if it's on the Google or not, but on the Samsung they have smart contrast, and what that does is you can have my preference, which is white text on black writing, but it will not change the color of the photos, which is really really nice, because it used to mess up um, photos when changing the contrast of the phone.
Yeah,
Um,
I think all the phones have that. So
yeah, it's a really big game changer for me. There's also dark mode on the phone.
yeah,
So I don't actually have to change the contrast. I just put mine on dark mode, and then it's a black background with white text, depending on, like, it doesn't work on every web page. So that's where the high contrast would work everywhere. So, but for your phone itself, that's how I navigate.
yeah. Another option that blind people will use, more so the totally blind, is they'll put the curtain so that when I go to use my phone, pull it out. You're standing behind me. You're not going to see what's on my screen because I have the curtain on. It doesn't matter because I'm hearing a voice. It
Right.
talk to me. People will use that a lot. Um, th- of- don't know a lot of differences between iPhone and Android, but the few things that we do know is that the contrast is better if you do need a different contrast, like white lettering on black is better. The zooming in and out is better on the Android.
Oh, night and day.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Braille support, and which I'm going to talk about shortly, is so far better support on the iPhone, except they're starting to have problems with the newer iOSs that are coming out. So, but other than that, they're similar. They're catching up. So Google's changed to all the same, pretty well the same, or very close to the same gestures that iPhones use.
One thing I'd like to add about select to speak, depending on what version of Android you have, it may not come with your phone. The newer phones should, but you can go to the Google Play Store and download what's called the Accessibility
Sweet.
Suite,
Yeah.
and it will have an additional 9 to 12 options that you can add to your phone as well, and it's free of charge.
Yeah. TalkBack now comes on the phone. It didn't used to.
Yes.
And I've just read some information and checked it before the meeting. They are doing Google's doing a big update in TalkBack, and they're going to be putting, before, like currently now, you download TalkBack and you have to download Braille, they call Braille back, to use your Braille display. So now they're going to roll that into one system, so that when you download your TalkBack, you get Braille support with it, which is very good. And I can always forward the email I got from I could forward it to Doug, and he could pass out the information, because it's really quite good, the new things that they're starting to. They pretty well listen to people. It takes them a while sometimes to get at it, but they're coming along.
Well, that's actually a good segue. Speaking of coming along,
May 13th.
because of
Android
the
13 :
I'm actually
Braille Incorporated.
starting a Android accessibility online business as well.
Property page.
I'm gonna offer a few different packages that will there'll be a fee per service, but I think based on the market, they're a reasonable value. And basically, I'm going to try and do this over Zoom, because it seems to be the most accessible to people. And the reason I'm doing this is I don't want to just focus on the sight loss community, which Tracy and myself are a part of, but eventually I want to expand this, and we're going to have AAUG as our podcast on there. We're going to have a couple different packages that you can see on the website, and there'll be a YouTube channel for people who like to do DIY and a couple other things. But I just wanted to mention that AAUG has really kind of got my creative juices flowing, and Tracy and I are going to work on expanding Android accessibility that way as well.
Okay, so I guess we'll see if we have any questions.
Okay. Again, I appreciate everybody's kind of keeping quiet in the chat, only because of the screen readers that are possibly in use during this webinar. So at this point, if anybody has questions or comments, thoughts, we've got two pretty seasoned experts here that use this technology on the Android system. They use it on a daily basis. Like basically, in order to survive, Matthew and Tracy use this technology. So what I'm hoping is that we've got people right here with us today that we can ask these questions to. That where are the differences between iOS and Android? How do you do something on Android? And I've spoken both with both Tracy and Matthew prior to today, and I know that if anybody in our audience stumps them today, they'll go away and find it out if they don't find it out in the background kind of during the session here today. They're both very inquisitive people. So I challenge everybody to either to raise your hand using the Google toolbar or unmute the microphones. I'll keep an eye on those and we'll bring you on by voice. And if you do wish to use the chat, please do so, and we'll figure out the screen readers echoing in the background as we try and read the questions out here. So, all right, Lyle has put some stuff into the chat, as well as Alice has. So let's start with Lyle. And those who have ever attended a N.O.A.T webinar know Lyle likes to challenge the character limit on the Google Meet chat. So we're going to take Lyle's questions here one by one. First of all, he's thanking you both very much for the demo, and he's asking if you can share your perspective on some of these questions, such as if a student with recent sight loss. I always have this problem on Friday, Matthew and Tracy. My tongue gets tied more so than usual. So I'll start that again. Lyle is saying, if a student has recent sight loss, what do you suggest we explore to determine Android versus Apple mobile devices?
Oh, that's a very good question. Tracy,
Well,
do you want to
I always leaned a little bit towards Android, but it depends. Like if in the blind world, there is many more people using Apple. They are more expensive. At least with the Android phone, you can find cheaper options. You don't want to go real cheap, but sort of middle range rather than. I mean, we have expensive. Android has expensive as well, but that part is better. But I think if you're using, it depends. If you're using TalkBack or VoiceOver, they're pretty similar. But if it's visual, like if they have some sighting, then you're probably better to go Android at this point. Are my views. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, I was gonna say something very similar, Tracy. It really depends on A, how new the person is to sight loss. B, how much what the CNIB likes to call usable vision they have, and what they want to do with their device. As Tracy said, the zoom on the iPhone, basically there's two ways to do it. There's a zoom controller where you can set a predetermined thing, and then there's a virtual joystick where you can use one finger, and it's okay. It's not great. The other one, and you have to double tap with 3 fingers, and then to move around that tiny screen, you have to use 3 fingers to move around the screen. So I find it very clunky. I think that as if you're going to use a magnification software, that it's not even close. Android just blows iPhone out of the water for magnification. TalkBack is now caught up, as Tracy mentioned. I think if you do know Braille, you may want to go with iPhone, if I'm understanding that correctly, Tracy.
Yeah, right now, yes, but Android 13 is supposed to be really improved, and I won't be able to know until I could do a report back on when that comes out. So it may be, I think it's catching up too. So, but currently, yes, Braille support is better on the Apple.
The other thing is when you're new to sight loss, take some time to adjust and take like technology training courses. N.O.A.T is an excellent resource here. I know the CNIB and vision loss rehabilitation do some really good things on just how to get around your home again. So there's the Canadian Council of the Blind that also puts on a lot of workshops. So just try and, before diving headfirst back into technology, try and reacclimate yourself with the world around you. And if you have any further questions as far as the technology side, then reach out to AAUG.Canada@gmail.com, and Tracy and I will be more than happy to try and help walk you through that.
And another advice for someone who is losing their sight is connection with other people who have lost their sight or losing sight, because we are the ones that can really share how we do things, easier than maybe someone who's sighted who doesn't really know the app like TalkBack or magnification.
Perfect. And I think actually, Tracy, that speaks to Lyle's next point here. Next question is the network of support broader among the Android low vision users? And Lyle, feel free to speak up or add into the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong on an understanding there. I think you're asking if there is a fairly broad support network out there.
There is
like obviously Tracy and Matthew, you're there. You're an
Yeah.
Android accessibility users group. Can you speak to the breadth of support outside of your organization?
There's a couple. In the United States, Hadley does a pretty good job. I know, and then there's a couple that are only podcasts or only blogs that do a good job. Tech VI is okay, and that's the reason that's actually the reason I'm starting up my business, which is actually called Androidability. It's dedicated specifically to Android users living with a disability. So hopefully I'll be in that space soon as well, and be able to fill some of that void. There are workshops by other groups, but they don't go into as much detail as some of the American groups.
There's not a real good support, and that's why we started our group, as Matthew said, because that is lacking because there's so many iPhone users.
Okay.
Mystic Access isn't bad either.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're in the States too, yes.
But they're all, again, that's another American group.
Yeah.
All right. And Lyle's just curious, that if you've used Apple mobile devices and VoiceOver in the past, what prompted you to move away from that operating system?
I never have. I've only been Android.
I did use Apple, and like I said, because I'm partially sighted, the magnification's not close. It's just so much better on the Android device. I've never been a strictly screen reader user. They have something similar on Apple to select to speak. I think it's called speech select. Again, I find that a little bit clunky. So I've just found the user interface and the other reason I like Android, and this is me personally, I like customization. And on Android devices, you can pretty much customize exactly what you want to do. Whereas iPhone, these are your settings. You might be able to make one or two changes. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I really like about Android is the customization surrounding the apps.
Right. Great. And Lyle's just asked, and you've listed a number of these, Matthew, and the supports we'll add as part of the replay and the resources from today's webinar. But Lyle specifically asking, aside from this great demo, where would you direct people for a good set of training resources or video tutorials? So if you had to pick one, either out of what you've already mentioned or maybe something's just coming to your mind, either or both of you, is there something out there you'd recommend?
What was the name of that blog? Or sorry, podcast? Tracy, do you remember?
Which one? I don't know.
There's an Android specific podcast. I think it might be like androidpodcast.com or something like that.
I don't know. I've never heard of it.
Well, in my research for
I can't remember.
in my research with my business, I was looking into other resources like it. So,
I
if
know
you
there's
like
yeah. No, there's the
podcasts,
old one that doesn't the one I don't want to mention. I can't remember the full name, but it's old. It's not updated.
Okay.
I would say Hadley is probably your best bet, but again, they're going to be it's some of the
Yeah.
things they're talking about, like accessibility policies, and that they'll be American because it's an American.
CNIB does do one-on-one training as well on your devices, and it could be Android or Apple
They
or whatever.
do, but they do. As a person who works there, they are very much more familiar with Apple.
Yes, but I have had help. But that's true. But they can.
Okay. All right. So we'll build that list of resources based on what you've included here, and by all means, Matthew, Tracy, if you can, if there's any others that you'd like to add in, that would be helpful and appreciative for our members and those in the assistive technology profession. And Alice is just curious on, and I had exactly the same question. If this didn't come up, I was going to make sure that I got to ask you is, Android tablets, do they have the same features generally as the phones? Because as Alice says, having an iPhone but still wanting to be familiar with the Android, I guess we don't want to go out and have to buy another phone, although, well, us tech people, we like shiny objects, so maybe it would be the excuse to buy one. But are the tablets going to give us the same experience, minus obviously the phone call part?
Yes.
Okay.
They come with TalkBack. You may have to download the accessibility suite that Matthew was talking about, but they have the same features.
Okay.
In some cases, more. I was just looking at a Samsung tablet recently, and they actually have for those of you who like that, they have a pen you can use as well. That instead of texting on the keyboard, you can just write. So I find that very handy.
But the features for accessibility is the same.
Yes, no, I understand, but it can be an accessible feature if you find the keyboard difficult to use.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they can also you can also use Bluetooth keyboards with them as well.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
And
All
braille
right.
displays.
All right. And then with the tablets, you alluded there, Matthew, that you've been looking at one recently. Alice is just curious if there's suggestions on what to purchase. Is there, I know like Samsung is the biggest Android tablet manufacturer out there. Do either of you know whether all Samsung tablets are kind of created equal? So you buy the $199 one that you see on sale at Costco, all the way up to the $999 one that you see on the shelf next to it? Or
Uh,
is there kind of
yeah.
a place where we
The-
have to start?
So, working with a lot, like I've been trying to go work with Samsung with accessibility and just on my own phone, and I find online they're a little bit hard to get a hold of, and sometimes I get the impression that the people I'm speaking with don't have a disability. Um, because they're just speaking, okay, well, you just click on this. I'm like, okay, but I can't see that. Um, so in short answer, you usually get what you pay for. Um, the the prices will range based on size, based on usability, but uh, I will say this: if you ever want the best experience possible with Samsung, go to a Samsung store. Their customer service is phenomenal in my experience.
And if
for
you're
those,
using a tablet for just talkback because you don't have the vision, you can get away with a little bit smaller screen because that's not important. Where if you have, like Matthew, some vision, then you may want a little bit bigger so that you're zooming or whatever magnification, whatever you have more room for that.
okay, great. And just you mentioned the Samsung stores. I think that there's a one in Toronto and one at West somewhere. So those are. I've been in one once, and they're the equivalent of an Apple store, the same as Microsoft when they used to have their Microsoft stores. So for us Android, Samsung fan people out here, yeah, Matthew, they're great stores.
They are. They have a
Yeah.
couple in Toronto, I think.
Oh, do they? Good.
They
Okay.
got one in Yorkdale and one in the Eaton Center.
Okay. I think it was the Yorkdale one I was in, and all I know is thankfully there was enough stores to keep my wife happy while I was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, is all I could do not to come out with a bill as high as as she had spent while I was in there. So I guess that's fair for anybody who's been married. You definitely know what I'm getting at there. So all right. So Alice, thank you. Those were great questions. And Lyle, great questions. Lauren has just put some stuff in here into the chat we're going to get to in a second, as well as Jim added some stuff. Just as we get to those, just remind people, if you'd like to join in by voice, please definitely raise your hand or unmute your microphone. It looks like the screen readers aren't being as affected by the chat as we had anticipated. So
well, I have mine. I put mine to quiet, so I don't hear.
Okay, so that's yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Doug. Whenever I do this, I always hover over, like, for example, the raise hand button. If anyone is using a screen reader, it's and using a keyboard, it's Control Alt plus H.
Thank you,
Raise
Matthew.
your hand.
Yes, that's something that I should have included, and I appreciate you catching that, Matthew. It's the keyboard shortcuts for that, and then if you're unmuting, it's Control D. Now I should remember that one. Control D as in Doug. Most important letter in the alphabet. Just
If
kidding.
we do Control D, will you stop talking?
Oh, I thought somebody pushed it. I'm sorry. Oh boy. All right, Tracy's got a sense of humor just like me, and Lorna agrees there in the chat. So thank you. All right, so let's have a look at see what Jim has got added into the chat. Jim did join late, and he acknowledges that maybe he missed this, but he's curious. The user interface for Android, does it require a lot of gestures to use the screen reader? Because Jim states here he finds gestures are problematic because they're easy to forget.
Not as much anymore. I think I'll let Tracy speak to these. They used to have these L-shaped gestures. They still have them, but they're not as necessary thanks
Yeah.
to the talkback menu. But I'm going to let Tracy, who is more the expert on
Yeah.
this.
I don't use a lot of the gestures, but you can swipe left and right and up and down and things like that. Or you can do the explorer method, which is what I use more. Is I run my finger slowly around and listen to what's under my finger. When I find that what I want, then I double tap on it with a single finger. Because remember, I don't know if you heard me say that when a sighted person, wherever there's one tap or two taps, we have to do two taps and three taps. We have to do one extra because our single one is our finger going around the screen, looking, trying to find the one app that we want. And like on my homepage, I pretty well know where the things are, and I can usually put my finger down on it or pretty close to it, because you know your own home screen. So there are a couple different ways of doing it. Yes.
The other thing is definitely explore the talkback menu that Tracy mentioned earlier. I think it was 3-finger double tap.
Yes.
There are some really neat things you can do on there. For example, the cursor is usually at the end when you're done typing. There's actually a selection if you swipe right going down the menu where it can go take the cursor to the beginning of the text and things like that. The other thing I would encourage if you're using TalkBack, definitely employ either Google Assistant or Bixby if you're a Samsung user, because a lot of the thing, like you can actually say to Google, take me to the accessibility settings. So it'll skip 3 and 4 pages of settings and take you to the exact page you want.
Yeah. Or you can say open messages, or and
Right.
and then you can use, there's Google Assistant, and there's Google, what are they? Google Assistant, and isn't there two Google? I can't remember now. So you can have the regular Google Voice, and then there's another one that's on your phone that you can use. I think that's Google Assistant, isn't it?
On the Pixel, it would be, yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, and then Bixby on the Samsung devices.
Or S Voice if you really want to just use the microphone button.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. And Jim has just kindly let us know that the NYC, which I'm assuming stands for New York City Library, please, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong there. The New York City Library has some pretty awesome online workshops for screen readers and devices.
That's true. That's very true. I've taken a few.
Yeah. And then Lorna has a couple questions, but it looks of it here, so we'll kind of pick them apart. Lorna's asking if you can walk us through how to turn on the virtual buttons. I think you mentioned a back button at the beginning of the session.
Oh, is that under talk? Where's that setting is under? It's under settings. Do you remember where that is, Matthew?
So I usually have them. There's 2 ways you can use those. If you have some site, you can have it where you can just flick up at the bottom of your phone and they'll appear, and then you can turn on the haptic touch. But if you want them on all the time, that would be under.
It's not under accessibility. I don't think it's under
No, it's
the
not.
phone settings.
Yeah, I'm just looking at home screen and wondering if it's there. Home screen layout. Media page screen. Yeah. Okay, so prevent items on home screen from being. I think it's in home screen layout. Just give me, or home screen, just give me 1 second. The other thing you can do is if you're not sure, on most phones there's a search button once you go into settings. So that you can just type in what you're looking for, which is what I'm doing now. Okay, so maybe we can take another question while I'm looking.
Yep. It's under, I just found it on my phone. It's under display and navigation bar, I think. So that might
Oh, yeah,
narrow
makes
you
sense.
in there, Matthew. Just there's a comment here from Lorna while you're looking through for that, Matthew. Just a comment that Lorna likes the ability to change the keyboard colors and contrast on the Android phone, not thinking that that's available on the iPhone. So I know that there's a lot of different keyboards on the Android phone there that gives a lot of customization. So
It is available on the iPhone, but I think you have fewer options. Like, I don't think, like, for example, some people like black text on yellow background or vice versa. Yellow text on black background. I don't know if you can do that on the iPhone or not.
okay. Lauren has just added in a note here for us that Lauren is on a Pixel and is lost on Androids. So that's
Well,
something.
I use which Pixel do you use, Lord? I have a Pixel 4a. And are you visually impaired? If you don't mind me asking.
By all means, feel free to come on by voice if you'd like, Lorna.
So yeah, Doug, I found it on a Samsung. It may be different wording for the home buttons at the bottom. If you go to display and then navigation bar, you can either have swipe gestures or buttons, more options. But oh, you can change the order of the buttons as well.
Okay. So it's under the display area. Okay.
Yeah, where you had said, Doug.
Okay, so that's great. Lorna's got her mic unmuted, so go ahead, Lorna.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Tracy. Hi,
Hi.
Matthew. So I'm Lorna. I'm not visually impaired, and I'm looking at a Pixel 4 XL.
Oh,
And when I go to the display, I don't see anything about a navigation bar. But Matthew, you were saying something about you were searching. What was the thing you were searching to find this feature?
Oh, so if you go to settings, there should be a little magnifying glass.
Yeah, I see that. So just wondering what I should type in to do the search.
I honestly just type what I'm looking. I typed home button.
Home button. Okay.
Yep, and I typed back button. So
Oh, okay.
Because I couldn't remember. I knew there was 3 buttons. There was home, back, and I couldn't remember the name
some
of
say
the other one.
overview and some say recent.
Yes, yeah.
Well, there's back and home is on all of them.
Yes.
But yeah, that's true.
So, did that help you narrow it down, Lorna?
No, I'm typing home button and I don't get anything. I type back and I get back up.
Did you go under settings?
It says search settings.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you type in home button or back button?
Yep, home button didn't bring anything up.
Additional touch protection.
And I'll try back button. No results either.
Okay,
Try navigation bar, because that's where
Oh,
it
navigation. Okay.
found. That's where Doug had found it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find out, because right now it says navigation type, buttons. You can also do swipe gestures if you prefer.
Getting back to Jim's comment, gestures are, there's so many things that we have to remember.
I
and they're-
understand.
Yeah, those gestures are,
But sometimes it's just a matter of swiping right until you see or hear
Yeah.
the choice you
Bring-
want.
swipe gestures brings back memories of the old Palm Pilots and how you had
Oh,
to
yes.
had to enter text on those with swipe gestures. I'm
Yeah,
dating
or-
myself here.
Yeah. Or the
so-
status. My husband had one.
Yeah. So Lorna, I noticed here that you've also asked, can you adjust the zoom without pinching? So just wondering if Matthew or Tracy know about that.
Matthew would.
So how do you mean by adjust the zoom then? Like once you zoom in?
I guess I mean, like you can pinch to adjust the level of zoom, right?
Right.
And I'm just thinking, sometimes I work with people that can't do that pinching gesture. Like, is there another way to get into the settings or to go to some type of control where I can control that level of zoom, like dynamically?
So there's a couple things. You can actually, rather than using the zoom, you can actually increase the size of the text as well. If they have, there's also motion control settings
For motor skills?
for motor skills. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just got to get back to.
You may have to download Accessibility Suite if you don't have it on that device or on the device that the person's using to get some of these further features.
There should be some accessibility features for motor skills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're really doing well on that kind of stuff.
That come with the just regular accessibility features is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What would that be under? That would be under hearing, interaction and dexterity on a Samsung. So hang on, let me try something. I'm just gonna turn my speaker off.
The mic's off.
And
Hey,
while
Google.
Matthew's trying that, I just make a note here that Matthew, I think it was the one who had mentioned this earlier, is that the ability to customize the Android system is one of its benefits. I think as we're finding out here, it can also be one of the downfalls. Lorna, you've got a Pixel. Tracy's got a Pixel, but it's a different Pixel, and then Matthew's got an Android Samsung device, and I've got a Samsung that just updated to Android 12, and then we're combined with Samsung has their own what they call the user interface. Their One UI, I think they call it, or something, which is now up to version 4, and that changes a whole bunch of things. So it really it does get complicated, but at the same time, that gives us the freedom and the flexibility. So go ahead, Matthew.
So there's a couple things here. Tracy, you can correct me if it's a Samsung specific thing. There is something called voice access that I haven't done a lot of research into yet, but I believe you can control your phone using your voice. The other one is there is touch and hold delay. So if you can set shorter or longer delay times for that pinch gesture. Let's say if the person has let's say a tremor or something, you can change that. Tap duration, you can set how long an interaction needs to be held to be recognized. And then you could put ignore repeated touches. So if the person again mentioned, I had like a tremor or something. If you ignore repeated touches, that wouldn't activate. Now, the only problem with that is if you use the oh, what phone would the person be using, just out of curiosity? Because there is another way you can actually use Zoom, and that's with the accessibility shortcut.
I guess for me, I'm just learning this on my own for myself. So it's on the Pixel 4 XL.
So they all should have, when you go to visual enhancements, you can set up the accessibility shortcut. And I haven't gotten my hands on a Pixel yet, but I know on my new Samsung Galaxy 21 FE, if I kept the settings that came with the phone, I'd hit that button once, it would zoom in, and then you can hit that button again to zoom out. As far as that pinching gesture, I was trying to use Google Assistant to do it. That didn't work. I'm going to try Bixby shortly, just because that's the difference between Bixby and Google Assistant. Bixby is hardwired into Samsung devices. Google would be into a Pixel. So
Yeah. The Bixby is like talking to your phone directly rather than, like, I think I would like to see phones do. They used to do more like that. For example, you would say, phone Matthew, and it would be look on your phone for it wouldn't go out on the internet looking for Matthew. That's not where I have his number here. Don't go out there. But they don't do that, and that annoys me. If maybe you can tell.
All right.
So Google Assistant should be able to zoom in for you. Like for example, I just used Bixby on the Samsung, and I said zoom in when holding the button down, and it said I set screen zoom to 5. So, and again, voice access is something I haven't played around with yet.
Okay, so this does also prove the point that everything with accessibility and assistive devices and support that we provide to those that we work with, everything is individualized right down to the specific device that the individual is using, not just the needs that they have. So
Absolutely.
gets complex. So I appreciate you bringing those questions up, Lorna, and generating that discussion. And Jim says that's one advantage of iOS, and is the so I just checking the chat here to see if there are any other questions that have been added in, and I don't see any. So just want to remind people to add their questions or thoughts into the chat or unmute. I don't see any raised hands or unmuted microphones, but by all means, I'm keeping an eye on that. So just as we kind of come to a close, I just had a couple wrap-up questions for you, Matthew and Tracy. You've mentioned a podcast. I know a little bit about it, but I don't think our audience does. So could you let us know what this podcast is all about?
Well, we don't really have a podcast. It's a monthly meeting that we have. If that's what you're asking, monthly meeting. It's the third Wednesday of each month. At 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and so that's where we get to people can come online and learn more or share knowledge that they know.
I think maybe that was my fault. I apologize. I used the word podcast because we are the Canadian Council of the Blind is uploading our Zoom sessions, Zoom room sessions to their podcast, which is broadcast nationally. So that's one thing that I'm going to be adding. Hopefully, I'm trying to consolidate all of these different questions into one site, and that's the point of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the Android experience an easier one. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that research over the next year or so.
Perfect. Right. And that's exactly both of you. That's what I was getting at. I knew Mike or Matthew that you had mentioned in the past about the rebroadcasting of your Zoom sessions, and then Tracy, thank you. That is I knew that there was the actual sessions that I wanted people to be aware of as
Yeah.
well. So
If you want more information, our email address is aaug.canada@gmail.com. Most people that come on are blind or vision impaired, but we do have some people. We have a couple that work with those with blind or vision impaired persons, and will they want to learn more, so they're more knowledgeable. So you're welcome that way as well.
okay.
And every
Perfect.
once in a while, we have some guest speakers on as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's a new app or a new organization working with people in the sight loss community, we always like to have them on.
Alrighty. And Lorna deserves credit here for sharing this in the chat so that everybody knows it. Is that Lorna has found the 3 buttons on the Pixel.
Yay.
It's apparently under the accessibility, system controls, system navigation.
Oh, I didn't think it was there.
So it's
Okay.
pretty deep down in there, and slightly different terminology, but it's there. So that's great. I appreciate very much the searching for that, Lorna, and helping us out there. And I added the email address back into the chat just for people to have it current. It's been added a couple times there. So, and I'm curious, Matthew and Tracy, do you have a list that you could provide we can add for the resources of recommended add-ons? You've talked a bit about some extra apps that you can add on or download and help you out with the accessibility. Is there such a list that you can share with us?
Do you want it like vocally now, or do you want it
Just,
kind of just like a text list?
yeah, just a text list so that we can put it in with the resources of this webinar. And if you don't mind sharing, if you've created one of those lists, and that can give some of us that have to support individuals in our day-to-day jobs, so we can kind of turn to that for some recommendations.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. And those were all the questions and things I wanted to touch on. We've had a lot of excellent questions and comments coming in through the chat here. Kind of going once, going twice, follow up here for anybody who does want to either unmute, raise their hand, or add in any last thoughts or questions into the chat, or join by voice.
I like to hear voices.
Do you
Go
mind,
ahead, Matthew.
Doug, if I just add the link to the website that I'm creating?
Absolutely.
In the chat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go right
I'm just
ahead.
working on the accessibility and booking at the moment, but just to get a general idea of what I'm trying to do, I'll add that into the chat as well.
Perfect. Appreciate that very much, Matthew. It'd be a good resource for all of us, and that an ever-changing resource as well, with all the new updates and models and such for Android. It's well, let's just say it's. I don't think it'll ever stop.
No.
So, all right. So,
Chat.
yeah, you should be.
Oh,
Chat should, yeah. And all right, so I'm just checking the microphones or the raised hands one more time. I'm not seeing anything there. And as Matthew is adding in that website into the chat for us, that's great. And just as you're doing that, there it is, androidability.ca.
There's actually no D. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Android.
That's me reading it. See, sight reading of the shapes of words that we commonly use.
I was concerned about copyright, to be honest, when I made that site. I would have left the D in there, but I wasn't sure if there was going to be a copyright issue.
I think that's catchy as well. So
Yeah, I like it.
that's great. So, all right. So we'll make sure that website is correctly spelled instead of me reading it out in the resources as well for our attendees and members. So, and all right. So,
So Doug,
yeah,
I'll
go
send you
ahead,
an
Tracy.
email with the update of the Android 13, because there is a little video that you can watch that I listened to, and it's very good. It will explain some of the things about Braille and about the changes they're making to it. And I think it's quite informative.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, and we'll definitely post that with the resources, as well as share it out to our membership community as well. So that'd be great. All right. So just before we do the final wrap up here, anything else, Matthew or Tracy, that you'd like to add in, leave our audience with?
I don't think so. I don't have anything.
Nothing at the moment. It's been a pleasure and a privilege presenting today, and thank you for all your questions. I am definitely going to look into the workaround on that Zoom feature that you asked me about, Lauren.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if you have any information, by all means, let me know on that, Matthew, if there's specific information, and we can get that out to the as a resource, as well as directly to Lorna, because that would be helpful, I'm sure, to everybody, because the Zoom, the pinch to Zoom is a very difficult one for a lot of people, as well as it's a very common feature that we need to do, is to have people be able to Zoom in. So that's great. All right. So yeah, as we're closing out the webinar, Matthew, Tracy, big thank you to you both for coming on today and sharing your, I'm sure, what is only a fraction of your knowledge of the Android and the accessibility features. It's been wonderful to have a kind of a beginner's 101 into some of the Android accessibility features. And I know we can't cover everything here today in this kind of a session, so it's an ongoing thing. I definitely invite you back as things develop on your end, and as Android itself develops. We'd be happy to have you be able to share resources with us and with the accessibility and the assistive technology community. It would be fantastic. So
thank you for having us and letting us share the information.
And best wishes. If there's anything that we can do to partner with your accessibility user group, please let us know. Sure. And we'll be able to help there. So again, just a final thank you to both of you. You've added more into our toolboxes as assistive technologists and professionals in this profession. We're never, our toolboxes. It's like the magician's hat kind of thing. You just keep pulling rabbits out. There's no bottom to it. It's a bottomless toolbox, and you've filled it up again. So we appreciate that. Definitely keep in touch. A huge thank you. And lastly, for everyone here today, thank you for joining us. And remember, you can't spell education without AT.
Clever.